all my crafty friends. How are you guys doing this evening? So I wanted to come on today and I'm going to show you guys how I created the Cupcakes Make the World Go Round card that I posted a few days ago. So if you did not get to see that card, I will bring you down for just 1 second and I'm going to show you how I created this card in Design Space. Now I'm going to go ahead and get that part out of the way first. Once I get done with that, if you guys have any crafty questions or Cricut questions or things like that, I will be more than happy to answer those. But I wanted to get that part out of the way for those who are here just to see how to create the card. Okay, so I'm going to flip you guys down really quickly and show you guys how or show you guys this card. This is my first time doing this live, so it's a little bit different for me, but I hope that you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys let me know how this is going and what you guys think, okay? Hi, Jacques. Hey, Marie. All right, so I'm going to bring you guys down really quick and show you how I created this card. Does everyone have volume? Let me make sure of that first before I go any further. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Tanya. Do we have good volume? Okay, great. I have about a 5-second delay, so if I don't respond quickly, that is probably why. So, okay, I'm going to flip my camera down and I'm going to show you guys the card that we're speaking of, and then I'm going to take you over to Design Space and show you how I created it. Hey, Mama Disney, how are you? Okay, guys, so this is the card that I created a couple of days ago in Design Space. And I'm going to bring you down a little bit closer. So here's what it looks like for you guys. And it has a little spinning element that goes with it. So as you can see, this is vinyl on the front. The earth is made with 2 parts of vinyl. There's some green and then there's some blue. These cupcakes are digital stamps and then it spins. As soon as I can get my hand on it, it spins. Okay, so then we also have this sentiment strip here. We have cupcakes at the bottom and we have a couple of mats layering this. So I have the one mat that I use to do stenciling on. That's just some white cardstock. Then we have some of the Cricut foil paper and the silver sparkle cardstock on the bottom. And then when we open the card, we have another little piece of that Art Deco holographic vinyl that I just cannot get enough of. Like, I swear I want to swim in this stuff. I love it so much, and I know y'all will probably get tired of seeing it on cards, but I can't help myself. So please bear with me. It'll run out eventually. But they have this heartbeat cupcake that is in Design Space. I'll show you that. And we had it write a small sentiment for us, and so that's that one of those sentiments that we have to do a little bit of crooning with. So if you guys need a refresher on that, I can show you that as well. Hi, Barbara from Canada. And then we have our same mats. I always like to do my mats on the inside and the outside of my cards. To me, it just kind of ties it all together. So that is what I'm going to show you guys, at least in Design Space, how to make it. Now, I will tell you guys this. If you guys like how we put it together in Design Space and then you guys want to come back again and do something, I would like to do an third part over Zoom if we do this, but to actually put another one together, I would be more than happy to do that as well. So you guys, after this is over or whatever the case may be, I'm not sure whether all the comments are left in here, but just leave me a comment below and let me know if you guys would like to actually put another one of these together, and we can maybe schedule a class for later on in the month to do that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you guys how to make. I'm going to now take you guys over to Design Space. Hopefully we don't have too many bloopers today, but I'm telling you guys, this is the first time I've done it this way. So yes, I love putting vinyl on my cards so much. Now I don't even know what I would do if I did not put vinyl on my cards. So okay, I'm going to take you guys to Design Space now. Okay, so here we are. We're in Design Space, and I'm going to open up a new project as soon as I get my chat box back. All right, got my chat box back. Hey Malin, how are you today? I'm glad that you were able to make it. All right, so we're here in Design Space. This is not a very, very difficult card to make. So I enjoyed it. I had a dream, and I don't know where I came up with doing a world of cupcakes, but you know, I love it. The contact paper, Marie, is in both the most Dollar Trees, but you also can find it on Amazon in the bigger rolls for $5. Or if you want the really, really big roll, they usually have it at Michael's for $14, and then you use the 40% off coupon. I keep stock in it. It lasts me forever. Okay. So here we go. So the first thing that I'm going to show you guys is I have already downloaded the image. This image comes from Not Too Shabby Shop. It is a free image, and all you have to do is go back to the video where I put this card together, and it will show you the link to her shop that you can download this. So once you have it downloaded, let me go back one. I want to show you guys how I actually bring it into Design Space. So when I go into my computer, in my downloads, I have a folder. It's under downloads because when you download something, the first place that it's going to go is into your downloads. Now, I took this from my downloads folder, and I took the background away by taking it into Photoshop. You could also use Pick SVG to take the outer edges around. Okay, so this is my PNG that does not have any background on it. I'm going to show you how I bring it into Design Space. So when we go to bring it into Design Space, first thing I'm going to click is Upload. I'm going to browse, and I want to go back to my downloads folder right here because that's where it is located. That's where it has downloaded itself to. And let's see if I can find it. Okay, now I named it Cupcakes because I knew that that was the one that did not have the background to it. So I'm going to double click that, and it's going to bring it in. If you have the checkered border around it, you know you're good. You know that there is nothing that's going to come in except for the cupcake. I always do complex. I don't know. This is super simple. You probably could put that in as a simple image. I'm going to click continue, and I don't need to do anything with this because it's already just the way that I want it to be. Now for these images, they are going to be print then cut. If you do it as a cut image, you're just going to get the outline. You could do that if for some reason that's what you were wanting to do on your card. But for this purpose, because I do want the drawing lines, because I'm going to color them, I'm going to select print then cut. And if you can see, it's turned green around the edges for print then cut. So then I'm going to make sure it's named whatever I want it to be named, and I'm just going to simply click save. Once I click save on here, then that is going to bring it into Design Space for me to be able to use. So now it is here. I can click on it now, and I can insert that image. So when this comes in, it comes in really, really big. It comes in too big to be a print then cut, first of all. And you know that it's too big to be a print then cut because you have this little yellow triangle over here with the exclamation point telling you to stop and do something different. So for this card, the first thing that I always do is I make myself a pretend card front. I know that I always start my card fronts at 4 by 6. So up here at the width, I'm going to make this 4 inches wide, and I'm going to make this 6 inches high. That's usually what my first base mat of my cards are, because I work in 5x7s. It's either 4 or 4 1/4. For this, I'm doing 4 inches. I'm pretty sure I did 4 inches anyways. No, actually I did 4 1/2. So let's change that. All right, so this is going to be 4 1/2 inches. This is going to be 6 1/2 inches. Okay, this gives me my area that I'm going to work on. This tells me exactly where I'm going to work, because whatever my cardstock is cut out to be, it's going to be relative to this right here. I always like to make sure that I have my things positioned on the X and Y axis, just in case I need to line anything up. So I always line up on the X axis at 1 and Y axis at 1 as well. X is going left and right. Y is going up and down. So I want it to be at the 1 inch mark going up and down, and I want it to be at the 1 inch mark going left to right. So we have that part. The next thing that I'm going to need for this card is a circle. And I chose to make my circle about 3 inches. Okay, you can play around with this. If you want it to be a little bit bigger, you could. If you want it to be a little bit smaller, you could. Just however you want it to be. So I kind of think about where I want this, because I know I'm going to want my sentiment to be down here, and I'm going to need some space to put my sentiment and my sentiment strip. So I am going to grab, first I'm going to change this color because I want you guys to be able to see what this looks like. So I'm just going to change this to blue. We're going to change that to blue for right now. So this is just the color that I'm changing it to, so we can see the difference between the background and this piece that I am making, but it can be anything that you want it to be. Okay, so we have our circle here. I am going to grab both of these, and I'm just going to align this. I don't want it center aligned. I just want it lined like horizontally. I want it left to right aligned, because I want more space up at the top and down at the bottom than up at the top. Okay, so now I have my circle done. I'm going to bring my cupcake back in. When I did this card, I wanted to show that you could make cupcakes that were any size when you're doing digital images. That's one of the awesome things about digital images. If you wanted a 10-inch cupcake, you could make it. If you wanted a 1/2 inch cupcake, you could make it. For this purpose, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch. Okay, and I did mine to be a 1/2 inch wide. Okay, so that makes it a little bit less than 1 inch high. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this over here. I want this to come to the front, so I clicked arrange and send to the front, and I want this to be at the middle. So I know that my card is going from 1 to 5 1/2, so that would be 2 1/4 should be the center point here. Okay, so I know that that's where I'm going to want my first cupcake to lay. Now I am going to duplicate this, and I am going to move this to be at a 90-degree angle. That's going to give me my first quarter. So I'm going to go to rotate, and I'm going to rotate that to 90 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of eyeball where my center is relative to the circle. And so you see, kind of think about a clock. This would be your 12 o'clock, that would be your 3 o'clock. Now I'm going to fill in these other 3. So now I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to place it where this is, but I'm going to change this because 1/2 of 90 is 45. So I only want this to be at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so I've got that where I want it. Now I just have to go and find my center place here. Okay, looks pretty good to me. What do you guys think? So now all I have to do is fill in these last two. So what is half of 45? Yes, I know I'm making you guys do math. I don't like it either. But when I want to make a fun card, you know, I'll do math for that. So half of 45 is 22.5, if I'm correct. So I'm going to angle this one to be 22.5. I'm going to move this out of 22.5. And I am going to move this to be between those two. Now I need another one, but this one I need to be 45 plus 22.5. So that's going to be 67.5. Okay. All right. If you've gotten this far, then you are fine. Okay. Tanya specifically, are you good? So now I've got everything kind of where I want it to be. I'm just eyeballing, looking to make sure that everything kind of looks lined up to me. And then this gets so much easier. So once you have these 3, 4, 5 done, we're going to select them all. And you can do this 2 ways. You can click on all of these while holding down your shift button, or you can do it over here in the layers panel. So I'm holding down my shift key or my control key, and I am clicking on all of them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and group them together because I don't want them to move out of this position. I'm going to duplicate this first. I'm going to move it back on top of each other, and I am going to flip horizontally. And once I flip it horizontally, once I line that center cupcake up, everything else should have lined up. So now all I have to do is ungroup that for just a moment, and then I can delete that top one because I don't need that one anymore. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I am going to grab all of these and group them together. So I'm holding down my control key and I'm clicking on each one. This time you see I'm clicking on each of the individual items. Okay? Once I have that done, I'm going to group those together because I don't want them to move. I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to center it on my top one. And I'm going to flip this time, but vertically. Once I get this flipped vertically, I'm going to line up on my cupcakes here. Once I get it where I want it, I'm going to simply click ungroup for one moment. I'm going to have to ungroup twice because remember we grouped these 5 together. And I'm going to delete one over here and one over here. So now we have our wheel of cupcakes. Does that sound simple enough to everyone? I'm glad you got something out of this, Mama Daisy. Okay, so now I have my whole circle of cupcakes, right? I don't want them to move. I need them to stay together. So I am going to go through and I'm going to click on, I'm going to get them all, okay? Those are already still grouped together, but these, remember, I had to ungroup because I needed to delete one. So make sure that you're clicking on all of them, and you'll see that this will start turning gray on the right-hand side in your layers panel. So that's how you know that you have everything. Now this time, I'm going to attach everything or weld it. It doesn't matter. Welding makes it all one image. Attach keeps them all together. It doesn't really matter. I will tell you, when you are creating a large project and your design space starts moving slower, try welding things, because if you weld it and make everything one image, it frees up space for design space to continue to work. So I'm in the habit of just clicking weld. Okay? Didn't want it to do that, so I'm going to undo that. And we're going to attach it because apparently with print then cut, it does not want you to weld. It doesn't like that very much. It takes away all my lines, and that was the whole purpose. So I'm going to attach it. Okay. So we've got that. So we don't need anything else. This is the cupcakes. It's going to print out like this, and then it's going to cut around each of these cupcakes for you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 16 cupcakes, Tanya. So we're going to take our cupcakes here. And now I'm going to work on this card base. So in order to make my spinning mechanism super simple, I am going to bring in another circle, not an octagon. Ooh, I want to bring in a circle. Okay. And when I initially did this, I made my circle at 1/4 of an inch. I would make it smaller because you might not have a brad that is that big. So for this time, I'm going to make it about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do 0.125. That's a really tiny circle, and it's okay. We're going to shift or control, and I'm going to click on my blue circle. I'm going to click align, and I'm going to center this, okay? Because what I'm wanting is a hole in the blue circle, but I want a hole in the exact same spot on my card base. So we don't want to move anything at this point. So since I already have both of these connected, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click slice. However, before I move anything, I'm going to click on that circle again, and then I'm going to click my shift key and I'm going to click on my card panel, and I'm going to click slice again. So now we've sliced out a circle of the card base that is in the same exact space with the wheel that we've created. And so therefore you will automatically know where you're lining this up at. So now we don't need those circles anymore. And what you can see is that you have a hole. I'm going to go ahead and move this back to the back of my panel. Okay. And I like to double up this part just because to me it makes it a little sturdier. So I'm just going to simply duplicate this, and you'll see that in the video that I created, I duplicated it, and there is one on the bottom and then there's one on the top. So now we have this part done. Now I do want to show you guys something, and I showed it in one of my other videos, but I'm not sure that it was done slow enough for you guys to understand what I did. So I do want to show you this again, and this is how I line up my panels. So say for example, you guys know that I layer my panels. I usually do 3 panels on the front of my card base. I like a sturdier card. That's just my thing. But as many or as little as you want, or even if you just want to make sure you have it lined up on your card base, this is a great tip. So for example, my next panel is going to be 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead back to my shapes, and I'm going to bring in another square. I'm going to change this square to a different color, and I'm going to make this one 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Once I have that done, I'm going to take this and I'm going to arrange, and I'm going to send it to the back. I'm going to keep a hold of that one. And I am going to hold on to the gray one as well. So now down here in my layers panel, you see the gray and the purple that are both selected. I don't want steps with the circle for braids. Okay, Tanya, are you saying you're lost because you You have one too many or one too little cupcakes? Is that what you're saying? All right, so now that I have those two selected, I'm going to align and I'm going to center them, okay? And then I am going to move these. Remember how I said I like working on my X and Y axis so that it helps me to line things up. This is where this comes in really handy. I'm not really working with my circles anymore, so I can move those for a second. So now I am going to make some little cut marks on this purple panel that are going to tell me exactly where to sit my gray panel. So I'm going to come into shapes. I'm going to bring in a score line. And I am going to, this score line, I want to only make it about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to change it to 0.25. And I want to move this to my 1.125 inch mark. And the reason that is 1.125 is we are already at the 1 inch mark, and I wanted 1/8 of an inch in because that's where the next panel will go. So if you are making a card base that is 1/4 of an inch smaller, you will have 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So that's where the 0.125 comes in at. So it's at the 1.125 on the x-axis, and I want it in the same place on the y-axis to start with. Okay? So that put me a little line right there. Okay? So now I'm going to want to duplicate that, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And so now I'm going to want it at the 1.125 axis for my X and the same for my Y. Okay, so we have both of those. I'm going to move this for a second and show you guys what that looks like. For some reason that didn't, oh, that's 1.25. It should be 1.125. Okay, so it should be 1.125. So you guys see what that created right there. So I'm going to go back and let me center these again. Okay, and I'm going to move them back to the 1 inch mark. Okay, so now we're going to take both of these that we have created. I go ahead and attach them because I'm going to use this multiple times. Tanya, as soon as I do this part, I will come back. I think you're asking about these circles. I will go back over that in just a second for you. Okay, so now I have attached these together. I'm going to duplicate it, and I am going to flip it horizontally. And now I want one all the way over here. Okay. So we are going to bring one to the 5.5 inch mark on the x-axis, and then it will be at the 1.125. Oops, that was not right. So 1.125 and not 5.5, 5.375. We're working in eighths, remember that. So now we have both of these. Okay, and I usually keep a file just with this already done so I don't have to worry about it. So now that I've done that, I'm going to attach both of those. I'm going to move this back up to my 1.125 and 1.125. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab those that I have attached together, and I'm going to duplicate it. I am going to flip it vertically because I'm going to make my ones for the bottom. Okay, so we know that it's going to be at the 1.125. And then this one, because we're going to want it to be right here, we're going to put it at 7.375. Okay, so there you have it. You have your ones here and you have your ones here. I have grabbed all of them and I'm going to attach them together. So now, if you notice, you'll know that this is correct because it is going to be the same size up here as your actual card panel. So these attached lines all together make a 4.5 by 6.5 inch square. The square that I'm wanting to place it on top of is 4.5 by 6.5. Does that make sense? So now all I have to do is take those lines and attach them to this purple square. Once I attach it to the purple square, it will give me cut lines here. Okay? Let me back up 1 second because I do want to show you guys something else. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And I'm going to move it over for a second because I'm going to use that again. So now that I have this, I can attach that with it. I knew that was going to happen. I'm going to undo that because it grabbed the gray. It grabbed the gray panel that was behind it as well. That's why it turned gray when I did that. So I'm going to grab this and this. I'm going to arrange and I'm going to send it to the back. Now I'm going to grab those lines and my purple square and I'm going to attach them. So they are attached and now my next panel will sit right on top. So say you're bringing in another panel, because you guys know how I am, I'm going to usually have that third panel. So if you have that square, and this one is going to be the full size of the card base, so 5 by 7. Okay, let's see, I'm going to make this one a yellow so you guys can see. Okay, all I have to do with this now is whatever size this panel is, that purple one, it's 4.75 by 6.75. I just have to make this that size. So I'm just going to make this 4.75 by 6.75. And now all I have to do is bring it to the front, align it and center it on this yellow panel. And attach it. And it should fit perfectly around the purple one. And you can do this as many times as you have it. So align, center, and there you go. And so now you know exactly where to place each one of your panels without any guessing or without getting anything crooked on your card. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew how to do that. And you also can do that for your actual card base. You just do it on one side of the score line. So Tanya, I just wanted to go back here for you really quickly. For this circle, all we did was I created a 3-inch circle. And I brought in a second circle that was 1.25 inches. So I brought in a circle, and then I brought in a second circle that was 0.125, and I click on my control key and I'm going to grab that 3-inch circle. I'm going to align them and I'm going to center them. So now you see that circle in the center, and I'm going to slice it out. And that makes that hole that we need to create the card. And all I did was I duplicated it to make 2 of them, just because that's a personal preference for me to make it a little bit thicker. So that's what I did with the circle. If you have any other questions, just let me know and I will go back over it as soon as we get done with the last portion of this card. So now that we have this part done, I want to go in and show you guys how I did my sentiment strip, which is super easy, and did the cupcakes. So we'll do the cupcakes first. I'm going to go into images. I'm going to find Cupcakes, I should have found the actual image number before I started so that I could have not had to look for it, but there it is because it loves me and it knew that I did not do that. So we're going to bring in this word Cupcakes. It comes in super large. I'm going to size it down because I want it to be a little bit smaller than my front panel, so I'm just going to make this about 4 inches wide. And I don't typically resize the height of it unless it is less than 1 inch. But I am going to go ahead and make this 1.25 inches. I usually don't try to stretch them too terribly much. Okay, so this is going to be about 1.25 inches. So as you guys can see, it already has a shadow layer for me, and that's the layer that I typically do in vellum. But you guys know that I always like to have my my sentiments stack up. I like for them to look like chipboard, so that is one of the reasons that I typically look for something that has a shadow, or I create a sentiment that has a shadow. And then I usually take my top layer, or you could take the shadow layer as well, and I stack it. So I usually do duplicating this 2 more times. That's going to be my cardstock pieces, and then I duplicate it once more. I typically change the color, and that indicates my vinyl piece because I love putting vinyl on my cards in some way. So there's that. We're going to align and center that, and that's where the cupcakes will come in. Now when I create my sentiment strip, I usually bring in a square, and I usually allow the square to remain at 3 inches wide, but it's only a 1/2 inch high. So I usually make it 0.5. I typically change this to white because more than likely I'm writing on white. So now I know where my sentiment strip is going to go. Now when I do a text, I usually allow my text to be at 0.4 of an inch, just so that none of my letters hang off the sentiment strip. So what I usually do is I go in, and this one said, "You are like," I probably should capitalize the Y in you. "You are like." So as you can see, this came in the normal Cricut font that comes up when you start doing text. I'm going to click on my drop down box for text. Hey Reba, I was wondering where you were. And I'm going to click this filter button over on the right hand side, and I'm going to click on writing. That's going to bring up all my fonts that have a writing style. Now once you find that, you get to go, sorry about my poodle, he has Napoleon complex. I love this Alex Maddox Ray font. I believe that this is the one that I actually used on it. Yep, this is the one. So there you have it. It changed it to a writing font. You want to make sure that it says draw here, because if it doesn't, then you'll have it trying to cut these thin lines. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, these letters are pretty far apart, not the way that I want them to be. So I usually do what we call pruning. I first start with letter spacing. So I go down with my letter spacing just until I start to get them close to where I'm going to want them to be. So as you can see, like the like is pretty much where I want it to be. The L is not quite where I want it to be. The U is not quite where I want it to be. So at this point, I ungroup. So I'm going to ungroup my letters, and I am going to start moving them. I am using the left and right arrow keys on my keyboard. So I'm going to hit the left key on my keyboard. That put that U where I wanted it. The U in U where I wanted it. So now the L, I'm going to click the right arrow on my keyboard. Nope, I clicked the down button. Don't do that. I'm going to put that back up. Now I'm going to click the right. So that's where I want that to be, right? So now I can also grab all of these and move my words closer together so they can look the way that I want them to look. And then I'm going to grab everything together and I'm going to click attach. So this is what I want my sentiment to look like, with the exception of it being way too big. So I'm going to go up here to my height and I'm going to change it to 0.4. But that is much shorter than I want it to be. So I'm going to unlock key proportions and I am going to change this to about 2.25. That doesn't stretch it out too much. Let's see what it looks like on my card. I think I can probably make that a little bit taller. So I made it 0.45. And there you go. So that is what this looks like. Are you guys still with me? So now I am going to grab the words and I'm going to grab the actual sentiment strip and I'm going to click attach. Okay. Everyone was silent. I was almost worried that I had lost you guys. Okay. So now we have that part done. And you could do the same thing on the inside of your card base. So for the inside of my card, I typically do a white front. Of course, we don't want that circle there. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then I would write, "You make my world go round." So text, "You make my world go," I want that to be 2 lines, "go round." Okay? So "you make my world go round." Again, you see we need to do a little bit of pruning. I usually like for my sentiments to be aligned and to the center. I want to move the line space. So you see that there's a big gap in between these 2 lines. So the first thing that I'm going to do is the line spacing. And as you can see, it's starting to move up some until I get to the place that I want it to be. Okay. Now I can start working on my letter spacing. I'm going to just move that in till it gets close to where I want. Things start to touch a little bit. And now I can just click ungroup and start putting everything else where I want it to be. So my Y. All right. And you can also use your mouse if it's not close enough, but not quite far enough. Just not quite there. You can move your mouse around to get things where you want it, like this O in the world. I am going to completely move this because I want the O to kind of touch the R in a different way than what it's doing. So I move that with my mouse. And don't worry, if you move something and it's not the way that you wanted it to be, or your hand slips or something, just click the back button. You can undo all the way to the beginning of your project. That's one thing that I love about Cricut, is that I can undo. There is no such thing as messing up, because you can literally undo every single thing you've done. Like this right here. You see how my hand is moving everywhere? I'm probably not going to get this right, but I'm going to try. Oh, I did. Okay. So now I'm going to move the words in to be where I want them to be. Oops, don't hold on to everything. All right, and we're going to move these in. I do want that to move just a little bit closer. There we go. I'll move that over just one. Now remember, once you have ungrouped everything, you cannot change your text. You would have to start all over at this point because you've created more like an image. It is no longer considered a text. So you can't go back and change your text at this point. So now I want to make this about 4 inches wide. Again, And I'm going to kind of figure out where I want it to sit on my card base. I usually do an alignment horizontally because I usually know where I want it to be in regards to how far up or down. So I usually just do a center horizontally to make sure that it's centered left to right. Once I get it centered where I want it to be, I just click attach. Now I'm going to go back in and get my image for my cupcake that looks like a heartbeat. So I'm on Cupcake again. Now Cricut has it to where the last search that you searched stays in there, so you don't have to type it in again. So that's why you see that we're still on Cupcakes. So I'm going to insert that, and I am going to make this the entire width of the card, which would be 4.5, so 4.5. I want this to be right underneath. Now you don't want to attach this because you don't want it to draw. This will be a piece of vinyl that you will put on your card. And because I want this to be the same color as that top layer of Cupcakes, I'm going to go over here to Color Sync. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to pull it down to where the Cupcakes color is. And that changes the color over here, so we make sure that we're perfect with our colors. The last thing that we have to do for this card is to create our earth. So I'm going to go back to images, and I'm going to type in the word, I think I did earth. I might have done world, but I'm pretty sure it will come up either way. So many different options. This is the one that I chose. And I'm going to bring it in. And now I want this to be the exact same size as the circle that we created. So this is a 3-inch. And if you can see up here, so this first one is 3.508 inches wide and it's 3.5 inches high. I usually go with the higher number so that I can make sure that I have it correct. I would prefer for it to be a little bit smaller somewhere than hanging off somewhere. So this one is 3.508. I'm going to change to nope, I just want it to be 3 inches. So now I just want to ensure that it lines up with my circle, and we're going to cut this out of vinyl as well. So that will layer on top of this blue circle that we have here. Hi Holly. Hi Tara. So now that we have both of those done, that pretty much does our card. We can bring this back to the front so we can kind of see how everything's going to look. This will layer over the top as such, kind of how you want it to be. And then you will have your other 2 layers. So like I told you guys, I typically do the same mats on the back that I do on the front. So I will take this purple layer and the yellow layer, and I'm going to duplicate them so that I can have them to mat on the range. So I can have them to mat on the inside of my card as well. So that's it. That is how I created this card. So Tanya, I want to do a temperature check with you because I know that you were actually trying to do this with me as we were doing it. Hi Yvette. So tell me how you're doing, and do you have any questions? And then once I make sure that you guys don't have any questions about this part, then I'm going to come back to the face cam and I will give you guys a couple of minutes to ask any other crafty questions or Cricut questions that you might have that I can answer for you. So Tanya, tell me how you're doing. Tell me if you have any particular questions about this that I can review for you. I just wanted to make sure that I got the card making part over first, so that for those people who may watch the replay, if they are only here to see the making of the card, they don't have to be inundated with our chatty chat, because I know we can chat for a while. So Tanya, waiting on you, love. How are you doing? I'm glad that you got a chance to come in and see. Yes, Holly, in just 1 second, I'm going to bring my camera back and I'll show you the card again. But I also did a video on Wednesday that showed me putting this card together. And at the beginning of the video, we were talking about if everyone wanted to get back together on a Zoom, then I would schedule a class for next weekend and we could all get together and actually make the card again together on a Zoom call, so I could answer questions and guide you guys through it while we were doing it. Tanya. Okay, Tanya, we're going to get it. This is going to be our baby. We're going to make sure that you get this one. That's fine. I understand having little ones together, but I know that you can do this. This is super cool. So I will be, if any of you guys are not in the craft therapy group, make sure that you hop over there, because that's where I'm going to schedule it. We will do a Zoom call. I will make sure that I share this file with you guys. So if any of you guys are like, look, I don't want to do all that, just give me the file and we can make it together. So I will have the file in the group for you guys. So then we can get back together next week and we can actually put it together. Just make sure you already have your images colored, then it won't be so long. Okay, so I'm going to bring you guys back down to the other camera, and then I'll bring on the face cam for just a moment. Let's do, hold on 1 second. Okay, let me save this so that I can actually share it with you guys. This is going to the craft therapy group. Okay, so I will make sure that I share that with you guys. So the group on Facebook is Craft Therapy. If you guys give me just 1 second, I will link it in here for you guys. Let me get back to the correct camera for a second. So this is the card that we actually created, and I did the video for this on Wednesday. This was my Wednesday video, and I am going to, give me just 1 second. Oh, Tara, look at you. Thank you so much. So Tara has linked the group for me already. So that's the group. So if you guys would like to come in and join us, that is where the file will be. And typically, if there are any cards that I make, I can share them over there with you guys for being super supportive. So this is the card that we ended up making with it. Like I said, this cupcake image is completely free. It is on the Not Too Shabby shop website, and if you look in my video description from Wednesday, her shop is linked as well as the actual image. And we made this a little spinny because in my dream Cupcakes made the world go round. So this is what we ended up creating, and we wrote our sentiment with the Cricut. Yes, it's super fun. And you guys know that one of my staples is making sure that I add a touch of vinyl to something on my card. So the earth is made with vinyl, and the Cupcakes top layer is vinyl, as well as the heartbeat. I am so into this Art Deco holographic vinyl right now. It just makes my whole heart sing, so I can't stop using it on everything right now. And I don't think that this does it justice, but this is what we came up with. And yes, it spins. I usually like to have some type of interactive element. Now, this top layer, I did do some ink blending. So I used Chipped Sapphire, Mermaid Lagoon, Peacock Feathers, and Cracked Pistachio. And I used the Mermaid Wave stencil from Cricut. Not from Cricut. Everything's from Cricut because I love them so much. But at any rate, from Hero Arts, that's where that stencil is actually from. And that is what I used on the back of this. If you guys are interested in a mini class on learning how to create stencils in Design Space, because I do that a lot as well, let me know. I'm not sure if all of our comments stay here after the video, but if they don't, just drop me a comment below. I just like chatting with you guys anyways, so just chat it up. But this is what we created. So that was that part. So now I'm going to bring you guys back to the other camera. Hi! Okay, so I'm back again. Let me get my chat back. And then I will answer any other questions that you guys have. I know that there were a couple of questions that had been talked about in the group, because a couple of weeks ago when I first decided I was going to learn how to when I first decided that I was going to learn how to do this live so that I could show you guys the actual computer screens and everything, I wanted to know if there were any questions that anyone had for me in the Facebook group. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and let me know. And I am going to, Tara, you make me laugh. I am going to pull up these other questions, and I'm going to go ahead and answer them while I'm on. What are your crafty questions? So if you guys have any questions, I don't see it right now. List. Any crafty questions? Like I'm looking right. I try to remember to actually look at the camera, because that will make it look like I'm looking at you. Is that kind of weird, Holly? Oh, thank you, Marie. I really appreciate that. I'm super excited, super nervous, but super excited about the opportunity to do that, to get to do a design team, or yeah. All right, Gail, I will see you guys really soon. I'm going to try to do this a little more often, not too often, because I really do like doing the edited videos, because I want you guys to kind of have the speeded up version. I know that sometimes doing lives can run pretty long, and so those become overwhelming, so I don't try to do them too frequently, or I won't try to. Tara, you're on a design team too. Tara's got a congratulations in order too. Pretty amazing things. I cannot find this. I should have done this before. Oh, here they are. As soon as I say that. So one of the questions that was asked was, how do you get your Cricut to print your stamps? I did a whole video on that, and it is really as simple as stamping your stamp images out. I usually leave them on the acetate. You stamp them out, and then once you get done stamping them out, you scan them from your computer and you upload them to your Cricut. And the same way that I showed you guys the digital images, you have two options. You can go ahead and have your Cricut print out the image for you, so then you don't have to worry about double lines or stamping twice or misstamping or any of that stuff. Or you can just have it cut out the die cut part for you. So I covered that, showing that versus the scan and cut, a couple of weeks ago in one of my videos. Covering your foam tape. So Tanya, one of the things with foam tape, I don't always like to see the foam tape once you've popped something up. It's pretty sometimes an eyesore to me. So if I'm doing full coverage, it doesn't usually bother me so much. However, if it's going to be just like pieces, and my card that I did for Create and Inkspire for this month actually does that. I did a part where I showed how to cover your foam tape. So what I typically do is I do a double layer of foam tape. If you're doing the Scotch 3M foam tape, if you double it up, that is a perfect 1/4 inch. Then I cut a strip of paper that is a 1/4 inch, and I usually use either a double-sided tape or some glue, and I glue all the way around the edges, having the foam tape be the base for me, and I glue it around there and close it off. And I usually use whatever color cardstock that I'm using for my mat, because it kind of ties it all together for me. So that's usually what I do. It works out perfect, and it gives a nice finish. It actually makes it look more like a box versus showing the foam tape for you. Gail, is what only for the Cricut Maker, or is the Cricut Air included? You guys, there's not really a whole lot of difference between the Maker and the Air. It really just depends on what it is that you're wanting to do. If you're not planning on cutting wood or cutting unbonded fabric or cutting like craft board, then the Maker is not a necessity. I will tell you that they did a whole revamp when they created the Maker, so it's a lot sturdier, and the parts of it seem to be a lot more quality. Like, you can tell when you pick it up, there's probably like a 10-pound difference in the machines. But as far as the stamps and die cutting, it is exactly the same process. They both use Design Space the exact same way. It works. I have both my Maker and my Air 2 connected, and I use them interchangeably, just because most of my crafting is paper crafting these days, with the exception of adding vinyl onto my cards. So I use them both interchangeably. I do find that if I'm cutting really small things, the Maker usually does a better job of those very detailed things. Like if I'm cutting something that's 1/8 of an inch, the Maker does a better job of that. But for the most part, I don't see any differences with it. Someone wanted to know what plastic I use to make stencils. So when I make stencils, I use acetate, and I actually have acetate that I get from, you can get the acetate, the Cricut acetate that's completely clear, that you can get from Joann's. However, for a long time, Cricut did mystery boxes, and they gave us tons of their acetate. And it was really pretty acetate. It had like decorations and things on it, but it was an insurmountable amount. So I started using it to make stencils. And what I found is with the 12x12 stencil, you can make usually 4 stencils, because I cut my stencils at about 5.5 versus cutting them at 6x6, and so that gives me more space to make more stencils with. Now the other place that I typically use that is, I use that didn't make any sense. The other place that I usually get my acetate is from Amazon. Amazon has a graphics acetate that is 12x12. You usually see me link it in most of my videos that I use acetate with, because that's the clear acetate that I buy now, because it comes in a 50, I think it's a 50, it might be 25 sheet pack, versus the Cricut one that comes only in 25. So okay, let me slow down. So the Cricut acetate comes in a 5-pack. The graphics comes either in 25 or 50. So that's why I purchased the graphics one, because it lasts me a lot longer. Jolene, who I know is in here somewhere, asked me to adopt her as if she's not already adopted. So, Jolene, no, I will not adopt you. I am now going to orphan you. So, anyone who would like to take Jolene's place, please let me know. I am looking for a new sister. Okay. Yes, Holly, the acetate is stiffer. It is a little bit thicker than the normal stencil material that you would purchase from, you know, just any store. So it's about that thickness. I find that it's usually a little bit thicker, and the reason that I like that is because I can use it multiple times. I just continue to put my pixie spray on it just like I do with the regular stencils, and I put it in a sleeve protector inside of my binder, and that's how I do it. I actually will see if I can get my 11-year-old to grab me this binder over here, and maybe I can show you guys a couple that I've created. So the other question, that's her in the background, is over all the way on the other side of the photograph prop thing. Go all the way over. Okay. So, Reva, Gail, yes, I got two for one. I'll take it. Cutting thin frames. Yes, you can cut super thin frames. I cut frames all the time. And all I do is I usually take a square, and then I make another square that's either 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, or it's got a lot of dies in it. Thank you. They said hi, 11-year-old. That's Kai. One day I will let her actually come on camera when her hair is done. Yeah. So I just wanted to, you guys have to forgive me. So I wanted to show you guys a couple that I've created. So these are some of the ones that I've created. This is a fishing one. I never even, this one is actually made, I bought some actual stencil stuff, and I don't like it. It is too flimsy. But then back when Cricut was giving out all of that acetate, I made lots of stencils back then. A lot of these still have pixie spray on them, and they're sticky. Okay. But when Cricut was giving out tons of that acetate, I cut lots and lots and lots of stencils. Let me see. I cut some round stencils. And like I said, I usually just cut them in. These are just music notes. I needed something with music notes for my son's birthday, so I just created them all over the place. And like I said, if this is something that you guys are interested in, I can show you guys how I do this in a different video. But cutting frames, usually I will make one square or one circle or one diamond, whatever it is that I'm making, and then I make another one that is just a little bit smaller, 1/4 of an inch, an eighth of an inch, a 1/16 of an inch, whatever it is that you are looking for. And I align, center them, and I slice, and that's how you create them. And if you wanted multiple frames, you just continue to go down in that increment. Hey Heidi, in that increment, and you can just slice. So yes, I usually use my Cricut to make frames, which is why I don't typically purchase a lot of dies, because I usually am looking to see if I'm going to purchase a die or something of that sort, if it's something that I can't make with my Cricut. If I can make it with my Cricut, then it's going to be homemade. It may look kind of like what the stores have, but it's going to be Cricut made. That's usually what I do. So deciding what size to write. Like I said, whenever I'm doing sentiment strips on the front of my card, I make my sentiment strip 3 inches by a 1/2 inch. And then I do my writing at 0.4. That usually works out perfect. That's exactly what this card is. So if that would work for you, that is exactly what this is. It is a 1/2 inch by or a half an inch by 3 inches, and this writing is 0.4 or 0.45. I might have done 0.45 on this one, but that is usually what I use to do my sentiment strips. When I'm writing on the inside of my card, I usually make sure that the width is about a half an inch less than what the card panel is. So if I have a card panel that's 4.5, I'm usually going to have my writing at 4 inches, and then I will decide on how much space I want my writing to take up on the inside of my card. So it's usually just eyeballing. I don't subscribe to any specifics unless it's like my sentiment strip on the outside of my card. I usually just do whatever feels good for me at that moment. The other thing that I do is I have certain fonts that I use over and over and over again. And the reason that I have those fonts is because if it's a font that I have time to do crooning with, then I do one thing. If it's a font that I need to already be ready and I just need to size it, I have those. I have my ones that I like for my swirlies. I have my straight fonts that I like to do. So it just depends on what I'm working on. Usually I don't mind doing my crooning, so a lot of times I like my swirly fonts, like the Emma Ray. I love that font. I use that a lot. Cinnamon Swirls I use a lot, just because those are fonts that I really enjoy. Marie said, do you buy 5x7 envelopes? I sometimes purchase envelopes, but I really enjoy making my own. So, and with the Cricut, you can make whatever size envelope you want or need. And I do have the envelope punch board as well, which comes in handy sometimes when I want to do something super quick. So I also have that I can use to do my envelopes with, but I use a variety. It just depends on what day of the week it is, truly. Someone wanted to know what was the best vinyl for t-shirts. There are so many different vinyls out there for t-shirts. As long as you have heat transfer vinyl, you'll find that some weed a little bit easier than others, and I have found that usually if you ensure that you're cutting on the correct setting and that you have the proper type of vinyl, so you don't want to have your heat transfer vinyl but you're cutting on a different setting, then it usually works out pretty fine. I haven't had any issues with iron on, although I have a plethora here and I haven't really done any iron on in a while. Glitter, with glitter, Tara, one of the things that I always do, I always cut my glitter twice. And once I cut it twice, I typically find that most of it peels away as far as the outside edges, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. I do have my my bright pad. I don't have to use it a ton. I usually find myself having to use it the most like when I'm doing really, really dark vinyls. For some reason, I can't see the lines that much. But someone had suggested using like either chalk or the powder that we use for our anti-static powder bag to make the lines show up better when you are doing weeding with glitter. Let's see. Someone asked where I do most of my designing. I design all over the place. I usually do the majority of my designing on my computer. However, when I'm at work, I will grab my cell phone and do designing. If I'm on my Android tablet, I will design there. If I am on my iPad, I will design there. I do preference doing it on either my Android tablet or on my actual computer. To me, those function the most like the normal design space and not so much like the app. So I still love doing it on my computer and on my Android tablet the most. Nancy wanted to know if she could be my sister. Nope. How do I make stencils? So with my stencils, I usually bring in a square that is 5.5 by 5.5, and then I bring in whatever images I'm going to use, whether it's a full image or a ton of images, and then I usually leave myself about 1/4 inch border. So like with this one, you see that I still left myself a border between where I was going to cut. I put my images on, I grab everything on the Design Space app, and then I just slice it out. And so you're left with this part. You just have to make sure you don't have anything that does not connect, because then you'll just be left with a huge hole if it's not connecting to anything on the sides or anything like that. So, but I will make sure. It seems like that's one of the questions that people have a lot. So I will make sure that we do something on stencils really soon. Can you go shopping in my craft room? I love you lots, but I'm not quite sure about that. You could come craft in my craft room. I just don't know that I want anyone to take anything out. How do you position on the X and Y? So I don't know if a lot of people use their X and Y axis, but I need my X and Y axis. My daughter just asked me, could she be my sister? What? No, I'm your mother. You're supposed to not like me until you're like 25, okay? Yeah. Anyway, so, X and Y axis. I love my X and Y axis because it helps me line everything up. So your X moves everything left to right for you. Everything left to right. Y moves everything up and down. So if you want something to be in a specific place, you just use your X and Y instead of trying to maneuver it by hand or eyeballing it and things like that. So if I have a 4-inch square, and I know that I want my sentiment to be 2 inches and I want it to be centered, I know that on my X-axis, I'm going to have it at the 1-inch mark, because that's going to bring it in 1 inch, leave another inch on the other side. I have to use my X and Y axis. It helps with a lot of the alignment, like you guys saw, especially when I'm making like my card-based panels or trying to ensure that everything lines up correctly. The X and Y axis comes in very handy. It also comes in really handy when you're doing things like positioning things in a certain place. So that comes in super handy for me. Yeah, and then when you can't find something that you bought in, instead of putting in a 5 Holly, you put in 53 and it's all the way on the other end of your mat. You just click on your X and Y axis and bring it all the way back to the other side instead of having to scroll and search for wherever it is. I've done that a ton of times. Making the stencil with the globe, the globe with the roses. You could do that, because so the part that we keep for our card would be the part that you would not keep on the stencil, and that would keep everything connected, and you could create a round stencil that way. How do I figure out the cut settings? So I usually use the same settings for the most part. If I'm using my 100-pound cardstock or anything that is higher than 100-pound, I cut everything on craft board. I don't even bother. I cut everything on craft board. It cuts perfectly the first time. If I'm cutting out sentiments, like if I'm cutting out letters with cardstock, I always use cardstock for intricate cuts, and I always use a deep point blade. That just works, and it has worked. I don't know what's the science behind it, but it works, and I'm not going to change it. Everything else, I really cut on whatever the setting is that Cricut has preset for us. So when I'm doing my holographic Art Deco vinyl, I keep going back to that because I'm in love with that stuff right now. It has a specific setting for it. If I am using Cricut's foiled embossed cardstock, I use that specific setting. They have it in there. If I'm cutting acetate, now acetate, I always cut twice. They have an acetate setting, but I don't like to fiddle. I just want to pull up and I want everything to be gone. So I cut twice. I do cut on the acetate, but I cut twice. And to me, that's just a good rule of thumb. I always try to peel up the edge of something to see if it is coming off easy, because I don't want to fiddle with things when I'm done. I just want it to come off the mat. So I always check before I unload. Yes, you can cut more than once on any of your machines. All you have to do is, before you unload anything, press the C again. So yes, I would cut the acetate more than once on either machine. And like I said, before you unload, like when it stops and it's telling you to unload, press the C again, and that it will allow it to cut again in the exact same space, so you don't have any double cut lines. Because if you, I don't know if you guys notice or not, but there's like a 1/16 of an inch space that makes it a little bit bigger than the 12 by 12 mat. So you have that small chance of having it off centered just a little bit if you take the mat out and then put it back in. So I never take it out. If I'm going to cut twice, I just press the C again, and I just allow it to go ahead and cut right there again. The same thing with writing. If you write something and it skipped a line, or your ink wasn't coming out or something, you just press the C again and it does it all over for you in the exact same place. So those were all of the crafty questions that I had on the Craft Therapy group page. How you use the different vinyls on your card. So for me, using vinyl on my card, I like to use the vinyl as kind of one of my wow factors. It's like that pop for me. So typically I go for a more neutral color, like the silver, the black, the gold, and things like that. But I don't really have any rhyme or reason. It's just what looks good for me. And especially if this is laying around, it's going on a card. I can't. I save every scrap of this stuff because I love it so much. This is my favorite right now. So I don't have any really rhyme or reason. Like, I'll use the permanent vinyl or the removable vinyl for my cards. I use colored vinyl. I use the holographic vinyl. You guys know that's my other favorite. The holographic vinyl, the Art Deco vinyl. I will use the glitter vinyl. It doesn't matter. I have tons of it, and I found a great use for it with adding it to my cards. So I don't have any rhyme or reason as to what I do. I do use the deep cut blade on my stencil material. As a matter of fact, Holly, that deep cut blade gets more use than it probably should, because half the time I forget to take it back out and I end up cutting all the things on the deep cut blade. And it's not that the blade is really deeper, it's just that the angle of the blade is different. And so it gives you a little bit deeper cut. It doesn't go any deeper than the regular blade. It's just the angle of the cut. For the card that we just did, I did not make that stencil. That stencil was a Hero Art stencil called Mermaid Waves. So I did not make that particular stencil. I love it when I get that intricate to making those type of stencils, but not for that one. That one was made by Hero Arts. So, do you guys have any other questions? We have been together for about an hour and a half now, about 5 minutes shy. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't have any other questions before I let you go. Yeah, I love that stencil from Hero Arts. It was very pretty. I actually have a background stamp that looks similar to it I have to use because I like it as well. All right, let's see. I don't see any other questions coming in. So I really appreciate you guys coming out. I hope that you guys have an amazing 4th of July. I will be back on Sunday with our Savior Sunday card. And we will plan for a day next weekend to do our card, to put this card together on Zoom. So I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys again really soon. Bye.